All right, welcome to another Miami Sports Pod. Will Manso and Clay Ferraro as the weekend comes to a close and the first official week of Dolphins training camp comes to a close. Clay, I think that the conversation for most fans that, we got a chance to see the team a little bit and hear from the players and Coach Mike McDaniel is what were your first impressions? So as generic as it could be, what a training camp really is and 4 days of practices, there were a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement surrounding the Dolphins first week. What'd you think?
I've already asked our executive producer, David Lang, to apply for Super Bowl credentials. So we'll be all set for the – I don't think there's any other conclusion that you can come to other than the Dolphins are going to the Super Bowl after this first week.
4 days, why not? With the excitement. It was cool to see Mike McDaniel, though, establish his system. And, Clay, he was very much to the point of, look, I want quality of reps over quantity. My practices may be shorter than most are used to, but I expect every repetition to mean something. And I think it was interesting to see him kind of fit that into his style of what he wants out of training camp those first 4 days.
Yeah, I also love the energy. I love the vibe. And, in particular, when fans were able to go out there on Saturday, and it was clear that, fans have been waiting to see that. And I just loved how Tyreek Hill embraced it, how Blaise Andres comes out and starts smashing stuff against his face. It's just the whole thing is, if you're a Dolphins fan, you got to be excited. You got to be pumped up. And I go back to what I said last week. I don't want to hear, just wait till they start losing games, blah, blah, blah. They haven't started losing games yet. So let's embrace what we've got right now. And what we've got is a team that is endearing itself to the community. It's a team that is bringing excitement and energy and fun. And for a team that, frankly, has been extremely boring to cover relative to other NFL teams for quite a while now.
Boring when it comes to the on-field product, because God knows there's been plenty of behind the
But as far as the
football itself.
Positive energy, it was really cool to see. And I like that Mike McDaniel is giving us stuff that we can go back later and see if it worked. And the number one thing, obviously, is what you already mentioned, the fact that they're doing the shorter practices, fewer reps. But the way he explains it makes a lot of sense. We feel like if we do it at full game speed, we can make our mistakes there and then correct them to where when we do it in the game, we'll already have that what do they call it? The mental reps, muscle memory. That's it.
Muscle memory. Okay.
So anyway, all that to say, I like that he gave us stuff that we can go back on and see if it worked.
Yeah, and I think, look, I think every coach has to have an identity, and people use the word culture so much, and this isn't about culture. I think culture is what you establish within the building when you get there, which Mike McDaniel tried to do and has done in the offseason. But now that the season is here, I think the identity of what he wants his team to be, and obviously, when you think of Mike McDaniel, you think of offense, and one of the things he's going to have to obviously prove is that he could be more than just an offensive mind. Now, I thought he handled the media well this week. I thought he said all the right things. And look, we've talked about it. He's a quirky guy. He's a different kind of guy, but it's an interesting and a refreshing perspective. And it's not about wins and losses right now. It's about building what he wants to see from his team. Now, the offense itself, look, we're going to talk about Tua in a moment because I think everybody wants to talk about Tua. And this week, the big deep throw, another viral video of Tua throwing deep. But I think the pace of the offense and the speed, what caught my attention, one of the days I was out there was there is speed everywhere. And it's obvious Tyreek Hill is fast and we get it. But when you look at Jalen Waddle, you look at Cedric Wilson, you look at Raheem Mostert, and you look at the weapons that are on that offense from a speed perspective, you don't want to make too much out of 4 days. It is very easy to get caught up. I think every beat writer, every reporter, everybody that covers a team in every NFL town is sitting there probably this week going, wow, that was great, or this was great, unless you're a Giants guy, but that's a whole other thing. This was great, that was great. And I think you get caught up in it. You can get lost and make it seem like it's better than what it is. But I think the offensive speed, I think the ability to break plays, I think is there for Miami. And whether they take advantage of that, McDaniel's offense, and whether Tua can get the ball to people in the right places and find that space, that's different. But I was impressed, Clay. I really was. It's been a while since I looked at the Dolphins offense and thought, wow, there is speed everywhere. And there's big playmaking ability everywhere, not just one or two guys.
It's funny you say that. I go back to, I think it was 2019, and it was the Saints and the 49ers were vying for one of the top two seeds in the NFC. And Sean Payton made a comment after the game about how crazy the speed was from the 49ers, seeing them up close. And so it's pretty clear that Mike McDaniel knows that's something that worked in San Francisco. with a quarterback who, by the way, and I've compared it to Jimmy Garoppolo for a while
Mhm.
now, and people don't like that, but I think when you've got a quarterback that hasn't yet proven that he's a franchise guy, when you put those sorts of weapons around him, you can do what San Francisco has done, and you can do hopefully similar here in Miami. So yeah, and I think a guy that I don't think people are talking enough about is Cedric Wilson. He's somebody who
Yeah.
I think, man, you talk about, all right, yeah, you got to worry about Jalen Waddle. You got to worry about Tyreek Hill. You got to worry about Raheem Mostert coming out of the back. You got to worry about Mike Gesicki as a tight end, really, really fast and athletic. Who's going to guard Cedric Wilson? I mean, so if you've got a safety on Cedric Wilson, this is the type of thing that makes Tua's job really, really much, much easier than it has been in the past. So look, this is what we've been able to glean with no pads. Let's see what happens when the pads come on, and how do the lines perform and things like that. But to the point that we made at the beginning, we can only go based on what we've seen. Love the energy, love the idea in theory of quality over quantity, and really love the speed that we've seen so far.
I also like that, McDaniel's endeared himself to veteran players, Xavier Howard, Teron Armstead, to name a couple, of being very careful with the reps as far as how much work they get, in particular early in camp. And, Armstead talked about his whole career. Look, injuries are something that you as a Saints fan know is something he's had to overcome. And it's one of those things that when you think of him as one of the best linemen in the league, that's the one little thing that you look and say, if he can only stay healthy, he needs to play a full season. But I thought what he said this week was interesting, because he talked about Mike McDaniel understands that Armstead's been in this league long enough that he understands his body and the plan. And there's a plan in place that they're going to try to follow to make sure he's at his best when the regular season comes. And you could tell that Armstead really appreciated that, because for a new head coach, a lot of times, look, we've seen it in coaches around the league. Brian Flores is a perfect example. Joe Judge over when he was with the Giants. And you can go around the league. New coaches like to establish this toughness. Like, no, it's my style. I'm the head coach. This is how it works. Where Mike McDaniel's kind of said, okay, look, I have an idea of what I want to do, but I want to work with you. I want to hear from the veterans. Xavier Howard, you're one of the best cornerbacks in the league. How have you been able to maintain your body and stay that way? And part of it has been giving him these early camp days where he really doesn't do much. One of the days I was out there, Xavier didn't do much. He was kind of doing his thing, doing his stretching. There wasn't a lot of practice time. But Xavier Howard's earned the benefit of the doubt that he knows his body and understands what he needs to do. Because, look, everything we talk about training camp, right? The bottom line is be ready for week 1 of the NFL season at your best, pick your peak physically and mentally to be ready for the challenge that is a long NFL season. So I think I like the way that Mike McDaniel's endeared himself to those veterans. I think he doesn't hide from it. He says he's like, look, we've got plans and a kind of a focus for different guys that we're going to go along. And it may not be the same for this guy or that guy, but I think that is something that I think players appreciate, because they understand, especially the veteran guys who kind of paid their dues. Camp can be grueling. And I think if you can maintain your body and help it, that's certainly one of the things you have to do. Now, Clay, let's turn our attention to Tua. He makes a deep pass this week, and all of Twitter and all of social media was a buzz. Everybody wanted credit for the video, like with the Zapruder film. It was this incredible pass to Tyreek Hill, 65 yards. Dolphins, by the way, don't let us shoot video once the team portion of camp begins, meaning us, the media. So we have to go by fans who shoot video.
Who are supposed to anyway, apparently, but that's okay. That's a different story.
What'd you think of the deep ball? And are we going to analyze every single thing that Tua does when it comes to any pass that's over 40 yards, let's say?
Well, let's define we. I mean, I thought it was nice. It was a nice deep ball. It's not anything that I didn't think he could do. And I think there are plenty of people. Look, it's never been about, can the ball travel a certain distance? And now what I liked was that he threw it to a place where Tyreek Hill not only didn't slow down, but he had to go full speed and stretch out for it. So to me, you do that at 40 yards, 50 yards, that's a lot better than making somebody come back for it at 60. The problem that Tua has had in the past, when he makes his mistakes, it's not necessarily that he can't throw the ball a certain number of yards. It's that it isn't necessarily on time, or it isn't necessarily in a place where the receiver can get it and keep going with it. When he makes his mistakes, I'm not talking, there are times when certainly he's on point and he's on time and on track. But when he makes his mistakes, oftentimes when going to a second or third read, it's just a little bit late. And when you don't have a Josh Allen Patrick type arm,
sorry about that. I surprised you were there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, when you don't have a Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes type arm, the timing and the precision is more important than it is with those. So I liked it. Great. It's not necessarily something that I had questions about with him.
Yeah.
What I want to see moving forward is, do we keep seeing the quick decision making once he has defensive linemen bearing down on him and the offensive line may not be performing at an elite all-pro type level? Does he keep putting the ball in places where only his receiver can get them when he is under? Those are the things that in this offense are going to make the difference between this team being okay and potentially being really, really good at making a playoff run.
Well, and I want to get something off my chest when it comes to Tua, is that I am probably as guilty of this as a lot of people. And I think we are, because look, we're even having the discussion now about his deep throw. When are we going to stop treating Tua like if he's some high school kid who's getting a chance to be in the NFL, or some college walk-on who won some reality game show where he's now allowed to be an NFL quarterback? Tua Tagovailoa is one of the most prolific passers in the history of college football. Played under Nick Saban in Alabama, won a national title, was a Heisman Trophy contender, was one of the more storied quarterbacks in the history of college football statistically and from a winning perspective. He was a top 5 pick in the NFL. Let's stop treating Tua like he's some kid who no one's ever heard of, or it's shocking that he's at this level. And when I say let's stop, I mean, he's an NFL quarterback. Of course he can throw a football 55, 60 yards down the field. You know who else can? Drew Lock, Daniel Jones.
Yeah, exactly.
Teddy Bridgewater, his backup. I mean, quarterbacks in the NFL, when they step back and have time, can throw a football 55, 60 yards. Let's stop making it about air, his length and yards. And every time that he throws a pass like this, it's like, wow, if you or I go out there and throw a 60-yard bomb, that's a viral video. I can't throw a ball more than 15 yards. But I mean, that's an NFL quarterback. He's one of the few in the NFL. It's a starting quarterback. Of course he could do that. To me, it's about what you just said. Accuracy, decision-making, when he puts the throw down, when he decides to make a pass. Is he missing a guy deep and then throwing at the wrong time where the defender catches up to it and picks it off? Those are things that are going to determine where Tua Tagovailoa is going to be that special player in the NFL that the Dolphins hope and expect he could be. Not whether he can throw the ball 50 or 60 yards down the field. Every quarterback in the NFL can do that. That's not the question. So I think all of us, and again, me the same, all of us included, need to stop making such a big deal out of throwing a ball deep down the field. That's what NFL quarterbacks are supposed to do.
Oh yeah, and look, you kind of got to play to your audience, right? And that's essentially what everybody is questioning. Can he do? No, I never thought he couldn't do it. Let me say this too: there is clearly a pro Tua and anti Tua. I mean, and there are very few people, it seems, in the middle.
Nobody's in the middle.
And if you're in the middle, then you're against both sides, right? So here's the thing: I want, if you are somebody who is pro Tua and you are running around pounding your chest because of that throw that he made on practice and Saturday, you are just proving that the bar was set so low for him that throwing the ball the distance of a normal NFL quarterback is something to brag about.
Yeah.
I don't think, and that's your point, Will. It's like, why are we treating him like a high school borderline college player? No, there are plenty of other things that he needs to do better in order to lead this team to a Super Bowl. I was never concerned about that. And look, Dolphins fans are used to dealing with the whole deep ball thing because they dealt with it with Ryan Tannehill for the longest time. And by the way, that was wrong too. Ryan Tannehill could throw a deep ball just fine. And then go to his second, third, or fourth read, that's when you had your problems. So with Tua, I don't care how far he throws the ball. I want to see, once we're in team, once we're in joint practices, once we're in, more importantly, the regular season games, is he able to put what he learns about this offense during practice, during these 7-on-7s, whatever, into practice when it actually matters? And so that's what I'm really looking forward to.
I think, look, I thought what was interesting too is that, and I say this knowing that players aren't going to sit there in the media especially and say like, no, we don't back Tua, we don't believe in Tua, but there was a real concerted effort, I thought, from his teammates to say, hey, this is our guy. We believe in him. We only go as far as he takes us. Teron Armstead himself said, I'm not going to put all the pressure on Tua. We all have pressure as football players to do what we're going to do. But Tua is the leader. Mike McDaniel called him the leader of our team. And, there was discussion about whether he's going to be voted a captain, which will be interesting. That won't get done until the final 53 is set. McDaniel says they won't do that. And by the way, McDaniel's not the one who's going to do it. It's going to be the players who are going to vote in their captains. But I think Yeah, I think there's a genuine feeling that Tua is ready to lead, that Tua is ready to prove people wrong. And for a guy who says he doesn't go on social media, for a guy who says that he doesn't hear about anything, what did he say this week? He said
If I
that
don't
if
hear
I
you,
don't, if
it
he,
doesn't mean anything. Yeah.
if I don't hear you, then you mean nothing to me. I don't care about you. Essentially what he said. And what he meant was, the talk show host, whether it be local or I think more nationally, that fill entire segments bashing Tua. And he said stuff like that might get to him, but meaning not get to him like in his head, get to him that a friend or a teammate or a family member says, hey, by the way, these guys won't stop talking about you or this topic.
Or he says, Ann always tells me, even though I don't want her to tell me.
Yeah, and being, director of media relations for the Dolphins.
Does a great job. And she knows that it's her job to make
Yeah.
sure that these guys are prepped when they go in.
You don't want to get blindsided.
Yeah,
he needs to know what people are saying, because then you or I, other reporters, ask him a question about it, and he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's a good idea to know what's being said about you. But if he truly doesn't care about all that stuff, he's handling it well. I think his teammates are starting to figure out. The one thing I tell people about Tua, I don't know Tua well on a personal level. I mean, outside of interviews like the way we do at camp and after games, I don't know Tua at all. I've never had private conversations with him. I know he's a very inner circle type guy. I know that he's very family oriented. And that's something that was talked about him as he left, when he came to the Dolphins. He's got a very small inner circle, and that's mostly family and then some friends. But I do know this. Guy's got a fire under him. He is a competitor. He does not like to lose. I think people paint Tua as this soft, kind of sweet guy. He's not at all soft and sweet. Tua is a competitor. And I think that's what his teammates are recognizing, is that people want to paint this picture of Tua being something he's not. And I think the one thing that if he's let his guard down sort of a bit, Clay, this offseason and now into camp, is that before he would give you very much the cliche answer of, I don't know. I don't know what they're saying about me. I don't care. I just have to work hard. That's it. Now he's like, oh, well, I don't know, but did they see that pass I threw to Tyreek? Maybe those guys want to see what I did here. And he's very vocal, I think, this year, being comfortable in his own skin of saying like, I may not listen to what you're saying, but I don't appreciate people talking crap behind my back and trying to make it seem like I don't belong. I belong, and I'm going to show it. And I like that about Tua. I think his teammates are starting to recognize that as well.
And by the way, I feel like it's that way with a lot of Dolphins players now, that maybe it wasn't necessarily that way before. It's refreshing. It's refreshing for us because we get sick and tired of the cliche stuff. We're sitting there and it's like, oh, man, we're falling asleep. And we know that our boss is sitting there like, why did you
by the way,
Tua's
been pretty boring. Tua's been pretty boring
in the past,
this year.
100%.
From a media perspective. From a media perspective.
And we know, like, our bosses are sitting there, I don't want to hear one more thing about I'm going to give it 110%.
Day to day, play to play. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so it's been refreshing. It's nice. And again, I want to hammer this point home because I'm sure we're going to wrap it up. I understand that none of this stuff matters yet, right? I think we all get that. It is enjoyable from a media perspective. I texted you guys privately. I said, the Dolphins went from being like the most boring team to cover to one of the most exciting and fun.
Having Tyreek sure helps. Having Tyreek Hill sure helps.
It's Tyreek. It's Mike McDaniel. It's Mike McDaniel walks in and he's perfectly happy to just be himself. And so Tyreek Hill is perfectly happy to be himself. And so Tua's perfectly happy now to be him. And I'm sure Tyreek Hill was like that forever. Yeah, but the bottom line here is when you create a culture where men are willing to go in there, adult men are able to go in there and just kind of be them. And this goes back to your point about having plans for each of the players and understanding you guys are all adults here. I don't have to walk in and be the man here to lead this team and throw the gauntlet down. You're treating guys like adults. It gives them a sense of being able to walk in and accountability. I have that account. So I like it. I really like everything I've seen. Understand it could mean nothing on the field. Understand we could be saying that all of this stuff was wrong in a couple of months, but it is refreshingly different. And if it works, it's going to be awesome to watch unfold because we'll have a front row seat for it.
Couple of final thoughts on the first week of camp and what to expect moving forward as we get into the joint practices in Tampa, preseason games, and into the season. There's a lot that you and I are going to discuss over the next month until then. But I think, there are two areas that you look at. You say, okay, Tua obviously, and the playmakers we talked about, the speed and the running back position, and Mostert and Chase Edmonds, two guys are very shifty playmakers, fast. I think offensive line is a position where I think we have to closely monitor. And obviously, Teron Armstead's health, as we reference, is vital to that. They paid big bucks for him for a reason. I also think, we kind of forget about the defense because this team, the defense was the focus so much under Brian Flores because he was a defensive guy. And now everything shifted to Mike McDaniel because he's an offensive guy. But this defense is still very good. And I thought hearing Jerome Baker say something this week when he spoke to the media, Jerome said, look, we've been able to establish some consistency and we've been able to show that this core for the last few seasons has been a pretty good defense. But we're ready to make the next step to go from a good defense to a defense that leads our teams to the playoffs. And I think when you talk big picture, and every team is going to think of the playoffs, right? Even the bad teams are thinking, hey, maybe we got a shot. Maybe this is the year that things go our way and we catch a break here and there. I think the Dolphins are legitimately thinking playoffs. And while we all talk about Tua and the offense of Mike McDaniel, I think the reality is, Clay, that if the defense can take a next step and continue to, again, build up the consistency, as Baker mentioned, they developed the last few years, that really is the next hurdle. Because the offense, if your offense gets better, but your defense takes a step back, you're kind of like you're going from, just on the outside, offense better, right back to just on the outside. I think he's right. I think Jerome Baker's right. I think the defense is something we're going to have to watch how they continue post Brian Flores. And if they can be that same type of consistent unit, show improvement as well to catapult this team into that, not just contention, not just 9-10 win season, but a playoff team.
Yeah. And I like that Mike McDaniel has kind of come in and basically said, look, and you mentioned Xavier Howard, Teron Armstead, but in particular with Xavier Howard, you've played at this high level forever. I don't need to tell you what you need to do in order to get out there and play at a high level. And again, we're just talking base stuff where, what do you have to do with your preparation in these first few days of camp? I like that he's turning over the ownership of the defense to the players, and not that he's not doing it with the offense, but when you hear somebody like Jerome Baker come out and say that, then again, the accountability is on them. When you treat adults like adults, and they're the right type of adults. And Tua spoke about the type of people that Mike McDaniel has brought in. When you treat them like grownups, they're going to act like grownups. Mm-hmm. And so you don't have to babysit when you bring in the right type of people. And it's pretty clear that Mike McDaniel feels as though he's brought in the right type of people.
I agree.
And if Jerome Baker, Xavier Howard, Christian Wilkins, all the guys that they've got on that side of the ball that are viewed as leaders are able to keep leading the way they have for the last couple of years, there's no reason why they can't take that next step.
I think so. I look, and that's the recap of week one. And as Clay, you said it early, it's not going to mean much to the season what week one of training camp was like, because a lot's going to change. Injuries are going to happen, position battles, things that we're going to have to figure out the next month. But I guess the point of it, if I could say just one simple thing after, this team had 4 practices of training camp, is that I think there is improvement. I think this team can be pretty good. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, I know we were joking at the beginning of the Super Bowl. I'm not trying to tell you that this team's better than Kansas City. I'm not trying to tell you that this team should be the top of the AFC, better than Buffalo, even the division. But I do think they're headed in the right direction. And I think Mike McDaniel sees that and has a plan moving forward. And if they buy into that plan, this could be a really fun team to watch. And I think as a fan, that's what you hope for. A fun team to watch that's in playoff contention that maybe makes a playoff run. I think that's what you're hoping for and what you have. So that's week one of training camp. Clay and I, of course, will be covering camp throughout the next few weeks into the preseason games and the regular season. We'll chat about it here. Thanks for listening to Miami Sports Pod. We'll talk next.